Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Christmas, of course, is a time of great joy and great celebration for most of us. But it's also a time when life can be particularly hard if you're on the streets. But new research by the homelessness charity Shelter sheds a light on just how harsh it can be.
Crisis found that 80% of people sleeping rough on the streets were attacked or suffered abuse in the last 12 months.
Well, let's talk to the Chief Executive of Crisis, John Sparks. Morning to you, John. Why is it so bad at Christmas? Obviously, the weather is terrible and all those sort of issues, environmental issues, which don't help in any way, shape or form. But what is particularly disturbing about this is the violence and intimidation that so many people are facing.
Yeah, the violence we found is shocking. And maybe even worse than we expected. That we found that if you're sleeping rough, you're 17 times more likely to be the victim of violence than the general public have been in the last year.
Why is that, John? Is it just that people, by the very nature of being on the streets, it is incredibly vulnerable?
It's a really, really dangerous place to be. Sleeping on the streets, people who sleep on the streets, the average age of death is 47. They're 9 times more likely to commit suicide. It's clearly a very, very dangerous place to be. It's a very vulnerable place to be, and that's all year round. And of course, Christmas does exacerbate it to some extent when most people are enjoying the safety and warmth and comfort of their family and friends, and homeless people are going through the daily struggle of staying safe and staying warm.
It's part of the perennial issue here, our attitudes in terms of really getting to grips with and dealing with this problem, that we have these attitudes about who ends up on the streets, these preconceptions about these people.
I think that's right. I mean, you have to have completely dehumanised someone to, for example, in the 7% of cases where homeless people had actually been urinated on, you've got to be treating someone in a completely dehumanised way. And the thing that really worries us isn't just the immediate physical impact, but is the impact on that person's mental health. Homeless people can be ashamed enough of the situation they're in already, and if this happens, they become more marginalised. They become less able to ask for the support that they really need.
So how do we help pull people out of this? Because, from what you're saying, it's not just a case of, when we're fortunate enough being able to provide accommodation for people, but also the mental strain that they've clearly been through.
I think that there's a number of things we can do, and if people are witnesses to these sorts of crimes of violence against homeless people, then it's important that they report those to the police. With the police, we're absolutely sure they're taking these issues seriously, but let's make sure the police are reassuring homeless people that their safety is paramount and these crimes will be investigated. And of course, it would be far better if people didn't end up in this position in the first place, and that's why we're so pleased that the Homelessness Reduction Bill is going through Parliament at the moment. If that becomes law, it will make sure that more people are able to access the help they need from local authorities, from other services, when they need it and before it becomes an emergency and before they end up on the streets.
There's not a lot most of us can do in terms of the bigger picture in helping all of this. We have to have faith in our politicians that they will do the right thing here. But what can we do as individuals? Is it just a case, in some circumstances, of showing these people respect? Does that help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We hear time and time again from people that the moments of human kindness are really important to them. That's why we open up at Christmas. That's why 10,000 people are going to be volunteering with Crisis over Christmas, because we just find that time, that space, that safety to reflect and plan is something that people don't have the rest of the time. So people can volunteer, not just with Crisis, but other homeless charities, donate to those charities, encourage our MPs to support the Homelessness Reduction Bill, and encourage MPs to make policy which starts to resolve this problem.
John, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, no one would question that life on the streets is hard, particularly at this time of the year, but new research by a homelessness charity sheds light on just how harsh it can be. Crisis has found that 80% of people sleeping rough on the streets were attacked or suffered abuse in the last 12 months. 1 in 3 surveyed said that they had been deliberately hit, kicked or subjected to violence, and 2/3 of people felt that living on the streets was getting harder. Well, our correspondent Ashish Joshi is at one of Crisis's homeless centres in central London for us. Good morning, Ashish. A very busy time of year and incredibly difficult for those living on the streets.
Good morning as well. Yes, it is one of the busiest times of year for the charity, and it's a time of year when homeless people in cities and towns across the country can come into a centre like this one. Thousands of volunteers, 10,000 volunteers sign up for charity Crisis and to help them with their work. In a centre like this, they can have food, drink, someone to talk to, they can have a bed for as long as they need it. And what Crisis is highlighting this year is the access to medical provisions. Those statistics you were just going through there make some quite horrifying reading when you think that of the people they've interviewed, 458 people in their survey, 80% said they had been either verbally or physically assaulted. Let's speak now to Jason Warriner. Jason is a nurse, he's a medical director, and he's also a volunteer for Crisis. He's been volunteering for 14 years. These figures that have emerged are truly shocking. Why are homeless people subjected to so much violence, do you think?
I think there's a mixture of reasons. And what we have to remember is some of it is verbal abuse, some of it is physical abuse and aggression. I think so living on the streets or vulnerably housed is seen as very, very vulnerable, easy targets. And if you've had groups of people who may have been out drinking, it may be seen as a bit of a laugh to attack a homeless person when it's not, through actually robbing them for their belongings and any money they've got on them. So it is a range of reasons.
It's a really dangerous place being out on the street. So when they come into a centre like this, Jason, what sort of medical help can you offer them?
We could offer the whole package, so that'd be somebody coming in who may be very, very unwell, who will do initial assessment and transfer to hospital, through to other people who may be diabetic, want the blood pressure checking, have chest infections, coughs and colds, skin problems, through to mental health problems as well. So it's a range of conditions we'll care and support people with.
The mental health issue is a particularly important one. I was speaking to somebody earlier who had been homeless, had just been given accommodation. He said it was important to come into places like this, especially over Christmas, to have somebody to talk to, because they can go for months without actually having any physical human contact.
Yeah, that can be very, very true. Being homeless can be very, very isolating. Nobody to talk to. It can lead to depression, other mental health problems. Within my teams, we work around the theory of human touch. So actually, somebody comes to us, actually getting their feet washed and seeing a podiatrist and having the nails cut. That'd be maybe a trigger for somebody to start talking, or just taking somebody's blood pressure. It may be the first contact they've had for a long, long time, and it's building up their confidence.
Great, Jason, I'm going to let you go. I know you were expecting an extremely busy day today and throughout the Christmas period.
A survey of rough sleepers suggests they are 17 times more likely to be a victim of crime than the general public. The charity Crisis says homeless people are regularly attacked and abused. There are thought to be about 4,000 people sleeping rough in the UK at any one time. The report found 30% of those questioned said they'd been deliberately hit or kicked. Nearly a third said they'd had things thrown at them, and 7% said they'd been urinated on. The charity says it demonstrates, again, the need to prevent homelessness. Our social affairs correspondent Michael Buchanan reports.
For some people, rough sleepers have no value. One stamps the head, the other kicks the legs.
I used to come in here and sleep on the trains, essentially. It was safe and it was warm.
Corky was homeless for 5 years. He took to sleeping on commuter trains after an unprovoked attack.
I was in Leicester Square, got into a discussion with a young man around the fact that I was homeless. He became quite aggravated, I would guess, by the fact that I was homeless and that I was saying that being homeless, everybody's an individual and people are homeless for different reasons. And from there, he ended up punching me in the face, basically, indeed. And it was quite a nasty punch.
His experience is not unique. Today's report lays bare the abuse rough sleepers can suffer. were subjected to beatings, assaulted, even urinated on. One man told researchers he was actually dropped from a height while still in his tent.
It's not just the incident itself, but it's the impact it has on that individual, on their mental health, on their ability to even ask for help. You know, we found that most homeless people who are rough sleeping, actually they feel ashamed already, and surely if you're then urinated on, you're going to feel even more ashamed and even more marginalised.
So your eyesight, who's looking after that?
Sergeant David Deal is part of a police outreach team that works with rough sleepers.
It's not my life.
It's no life, is it?
While he encourages them to report crimes, he understands why today's report says many don't trust the police.
There's other aspects of their life, maybe drug use, maybe begging, maybe other forms of antisocial behaviour. When they come into contact with police regarding those types of behaviour, that's when they might not trust police because they maybe get arrested.
For these homeless people, this centre will provide shelter and sustenance over Christmas. Susan Walker is currently bedding down in a stairwell. Sleep is uneasy due to her constant fear of attack.
Being raped, yeah, because, you know, you can get some of these people now, see a woman and they say, oh, you know, I'll go for her. And if that happened, well, as a woman, we wouldn't have no chance.
Rough sleepers are permanently vulnerable. They have no shelter. Any stranger could attack at any time. Unfortunately, some do. Michael Buchanan, BBC News.
Now, a former Conservative minister was once quoted as saying, "The homeless are what you step over when you come out of the opera." But it seems too many people are not even that considerate. The charity Crisis says that almost 8 in 10 homeless people have suffered some sort of violence or abuse in the past year, with the majority of rough sleepers saying life on the street is getting worse. We've been speaking to 2 former homeless men about the abuse they experienced and why the Christmas period can often be the very worst time of year.
Being homeless for some people means that you have no value. And if people feel that you have no value and they've had a drink, then you can be victim to some abusive situations. And I suppose there's more intoxicated people around at Christmas, and therefore the people that they feel is of no value, they are more likely to abuse. My name's Corky, and I was homeless for approximately 5 years.
Yeah, Christmas is it's the hardest time of year. You think of people being inside, being warm, because it's a time of unity and you're out there by yourself. My name's Carlos Blanco and I was homeless for around a year.
It wasn't a gradual process. It was a dichotomy. One minute I was in a good job, living a comfortable life, and then one day I separated from my ex-wife, and she had the house and stuff, and at first I stayed at an internet cafe, and I was kind of like in denial, and I realised I was homeless. I had nowhere to go.
At first it was a bit of a shock. I originally went to my council, who turned me away because I was not deemed as vulnerable, and because it was winter time as well, it was all a bit daunting, a bit scary.
Well, I spent 5 years on the trains, and I could have spent anything up to 8 hours a day on a train. I would always wear a suit, and it was like my camouflage, because when anybody asked me what I was doing, I'd say, oh, I was on my way to work and I fell asleep.
This is where I was staying for a few days. So me and my friend were sort of sat in this corner. He suffered quite a lot of abuse on the street. Just before Christmas, he actually got his face cut. We sort of cut him here, like right across his mouth. He had to have stitches and stuff like that.
And I remember one day I got into an argument, a petty argument with this guy on the road. He was quite rude to me, and he punched me in the side of my head. I'll never forget that. You believe that the world is a mirror image of yourself. If you are a person who doesn't like violence, who wants to kind of live a peaceful life and just and treat people as he would like to be treated, because you're of that mentality, you assume everybody else is. And in that moment I realised, actually no.
It's the look and the fact that you are lying on the street and things like that. They classify you as dirty, and it's horrible. And you see people walking past with like lots of presents and things like that, and you think, well, you know, even if you had like a sleeping bag or a blanket or something like that, it does make it really difficult. If anything, it just makes me angry that people don't take a second to understand.
It's disturbing that in this, what we'd call developed country, that we have people that are of such a mentality that they feel it's okay to abuse the vulnerable. And I think it's disgusting, isn't it, really? I mean, I don't know how else I could put it into any terms. It is disgusting, it's abhorrent, and it's unacceptable.
I've been